No, I don't think it's possible. You're not going to be native, but you can perhaps get pretty darn close, but I don't think you'll ever get all the way there.
What's up, KoreKara squad? Welcome back to the podcast.
Before we get started, make sure to absolutely decimate the like button.
Yeah, today we talked to Oriental Pearl, who is a YouTuber fluent in both Japanese and Chinese, best known for making videos shocking Japanese people and Chinese people in public.
So hope you guys enjoy this conversation.
Yeah, can you give us a quick background of who you are and where you're at today?
Sure, no problem. My name is An Ming. I am making a YouTube channel called Oriental Pearl. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, USA. I lived there most of my life. And after graduating from university in America, graduating from business school, I moved over to China. And I've been over in Asia ever since. I lived in China, mainland China. I've lived in Taiwan and in Japan. I've worked in all those countries. I've gone to university in those countries for grad school. In China, I went to Fudan University. Then I came over to Japan to go to Waseda as an exchange student. And I'm still here. So
nice. Excited
to talk to you guys and get to know you more. And hopefully, we'll have a good talk.
Yeah. Like, I guess starting with the little spicy question here. I mean, you've been very open on your channel about spending time back and forth between China and Japan, as well as kind of getting locked in Japan. But I mean, for better, for worse, so it's you love to see it too. But I guess of all the places you've been to, you just listed quite a few. Is there one that stands on top? Are you able to go and drop the hot take on which is the best country that you've lived in so far?
The best country to live in? Well, that's a tough question, but ultimately the place that I want to live in for the long term is Japan.
Perfect. That's that. Everyone in the comments section is applauding right now.
Everyone wants to hear that. They want to hear Japan.
Yeah.
There's a few reasons for that too. I did enjoy China very much, and I enjoyed living in mainland China. I enjoyed living in Taiwan as well. I enjoyed how cheap things were, especially in mainland China. That was nice, and how easy it was to get around. Just because you felt like you had a lot more money. Then you come over to Japan, where the standard of living is higher, the salaries are higher, and now you're the poor person, or not quite, but it is rougher. So I always liked that about China, and it just it's a huge country. There's lots of places to see. I feel a little bit like claustrophobic here in Japan right now because, it is a beautiful country. There's lots to see, but it is an island. At the end of the day, it is a very small country. It's just nice, though. Good environment. I like the weather. I'm from Detroit, so the weather's much better than my hometown. And people are very kind. I always appreciated, too, that for whatever reason, and maybe some people who've only been to Japan will feel differently, but they treat foreigners a lot more like I'd like to be treated. So, there's no big shocks when you speak Japanese. They assume in the convenience store you speak Japanese. They'll only speak to you in Japanese. You want a bag. Unlike China, where they don't, it's just a different feeling. I always appreciated that about Japan, not making a big deal about speaking Japanese, but perhaps for filming YouTube videos, it's not the best place to be then. If you're doing shocking people, nobody's shocked, right? Or they won't express it, which is wonderful for daily life. But yeah, some people said, I like when you speak to Chinese people more. The reactions are more interesting. Well, okay, but it's nicer to live where people don't react much.
Right. How many Japanese people do you have to talk to until you get like that solid reaction for YouTube?
Oh my gosh, it's so rare. I don't even think I've gotten any solid reactions, or a few. Mostly I've just had friendly talks, or I've had to do different things here in Japan because that just doesn't happen very much. But hey, that's totally fine by me.
Yeah. I mean, if it's between your daily life and YouTube, I mean, definitely want to prioritize your living and quality of life.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we get quite old after 10 years, that wow, 日本語上手ですね all the time. It's great when you're a tourist. It's even great the first year or 2 or even 3 when you're here in Japan. But if you do really get to the more advanced levels of Japanese, then it gets old. It really does. You're beyond the point where you need to be encouraged. You're like, I just want to live my life. I'm here. I'm living here, using Japanese every day, and I'd rather just get right into the conversation with people. I was always a little afraid to meet new people in China because I was like, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. We gotta do the thing. We gotta do the thing. 哇，你中文讲得很好啊！哇，你为什么会中文哦？ And it's just like, I want to skip it. I want to skip it and just get to the conversation.
Fast forward.
Yeah, sometimes after a certain point. Yeah, especially after going to university in China. I got my master's degree there. The program was entirely taught in Chinese, and the professors taught us just like everybody else. Same with Waseda, the Japanese university. And then to leave that environment and suddenly, everybody's asking you these basic questions again. Wow, you can say hello. It's just, or, you understood. Do you want a bag? It's just, we just debated politics in my class, man. I know you don't know that, but for me, it's like, That's okay though. That's why I made the videos in the first place, because I had a lot of frustration. It pissed me off. It actually pissed me off after, so many years, and I'd get snippy with people. I got a little mean. And then I started making these videos where I was taking these reactions that would irritate me in the past and trying to turn them into something positive. So I don't feel that way anymore with the patronizing or whatever. I mean, people are being nice. They're trying to be nice. They're trying to be encouraging. And they don't know your history. They don't know your background. You're strangers. But that is one reason I started making the videos, because now I don't feel bad about it anymore. Now I'm like, that's okay. It's kind of funny. Or, hey, I'm going to film it and then make something positive out of it.
Right. Wow. I find that really interesting. I never knew that the whole kind of premise of the videos kind of started with, oh, these people, I'm going to get them back right now.
It's not about getting people back. It's more, the funny thing is, if you want to talk about getting people back, for all the videos I've made walking around Japan and doing shocking videos, somebody got me one time. A Japanese YouTuber got me. I did not even realize. I didn't realize he was filming it. He's a piano player. He does reaction videos of foreigners watching him play the piano. Our video went so viral. It got like 4 or 5 million views. I was shocked. I didn't realize it until I found it on his channel. I met him. I knew he was a YouTuber. Didn't know the woman standing behind him was filming while we were playing the piano, but it's just like so funny. Like, man. And I thought I was getting him, like, playing the piano, watching him, and he got me. And he got me much better because it was a popular video. It's just funny. No, it's not about getting back at people, or it was more like trying to change my attitude about it. I'm gonna live here for a long time. We just talked about it. I got engaged to a Japanese man recently. I'm not going anywhere, so it is what it is, and get used to it. So I more or less have to change my feelings about it, and this helped a lot. It really did. I don't feel so much stress or frustration with it anymore.
Oh, you love to see it. Always turning it towards the positive side. That's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess like you, given that you're fluent in both Chinese and Japanese, but you actually learned each language in a different way, right?
Yeah, definitely. With Chinese, I started self-studying, and I would listen to audio lessons. And then I came over to China with just basic Chinese, enough to get by, and went into language school there. After passing HSK 6, which is equivalent to JLPT N1, I decided to start taking on Japanese. And I also went to a language school, but long before that, I was kind of studying on my own with flashcards and audio lessons and language exchange. So that was the big difference between Chinese and Japanese. When I started learning Chinese, there were no language exchange apps like HelloTalk. With Japanese, I just got started with audio lessons, and then went right into language exchange, meeting all these Japanese people living in Beijing, living in Shanghai, and getting familiar with their community. So that was a little different. And now I'm taking on Korean, by the way. Just started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I got some free audio lessons, which are the same ones I used in the very beginning with the other languages. So
gotta catch them all.
No, I think that will be enough. That is more than enough. The only reason I decided to take on Korean is because I've gotten to the point where I got a job using Japanese. So I've gotten to I got a good foundation there. I've learned it for 6 years. And I can maintain Chinese and Japanese in this environment. I don't have to do a lot of extra work. That's the problem with living in America. You learn all these languages. If you don't use them every day, you might have your prime and then it kind of goes down from there. I can maintain Chinese and Japanese without much effort here. Live with Chinese people currently in this place. My fiancé is Japanese. He doesn't speak English. His parents don't speak English. We use Japanese all the time. So those are a given. I don't have to continue to do too much with those. Just a little, polishing the Japanese for sure. But that's why I started taking on Korean.
Right. So do you think that like dating a Japanese man now, like getting married, has taken your Japanese to the next level?
We're not married yet. In fact, that's very recent. We only just got engaged at the end of September. So that's really recent. Talking to him, we've been dating for a year. Has it brought my Japanese to the next level? It's helped, but he didn't teach me anything. He's not my teacher. That's not his role. And I know he really wants to study English, and I've taught English before in China and Japan, but I'm not his teacher either. It's just kind of awkward, I've taught him some stuff, and I can't say he's taught me anything, but I've taught him some stuff. In English, I'll sit down just because I wanted to be... I knew he was interested. I knew he used it a little tiny bit for his job, like writing. He doesn't know how to speak so much, but he can write. So I was helping him, and it's difficult. If you expect your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your wife, your husband to teach you Japanese, it doesn't work so well, because... for a lot of reasons. I don't know if you can imagine what those are. Did you ever have this kind of experience?
Eric did actually. But
like for me, I think it was like a pretty positive experience.
Yeah? Somebody taught you Japanese that you were dating?
Well, not really like teach me. It was just like I was like learning on my own, and then I could it like helped me progress really fast because I would be using it a lot, and I got really comfortable with the language.
Exactly. That's the point, that you're studying it on your own. Your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, husband, wife is not like sitting there teaching you like a teacher, but you study on your own and then you use what you learned with them. And it's really helpful if, say, for in my situation where he doesn't really speak a lot of English, so it makes sense for us to speak Japanese. It would be really hard to only use English. I don't know how we could do that. But I studied before we met, and I'm still studying now in my spare time. So I just use what I learned in our conversation. It just reinforces it, but he's not necessarily teaching me. It's like the Hello Talk thing. When you get a language exchange partner, they're not teachers. A lot of them don't know how to explain Japanese grammar to you. Don't expect them to like whip out a book and give you a lesson. It's more like, you study on your own, and then when you're ready to practice what you learned, then find your language exchange partner or find your girlfriend.
Exactly.
Oh, so this is the next step right there. Find your significant other in your target language. Success.
Well, it's not going to be very successful though if your partner speaks really good English, because you're just going to fall back on English all the time. So it doesn't work so well. But for the people who are in the situation where they can use it with their significant other, sure, it's great practice. I mean, we're not using them for practice, but if it's your only tool of communication, you're gonna get a lot of practice in there because you got no other language to use together.
Yeah.
But I guess like you could always have them correct you if you make mistakes.
That's awkward though, isn't it?
Is it?
A little bit. I mean, I struggle with that with my boyfriend as well. He talked to my mom a week or two ago, and I don't want to correct him in the middle of our conversation with my mom. It's just pretty awkward. Like, honey, you didn't say that right, or make it really really emphasize the fact that, hey, my mom didn't understand what you said. It's just those moments you want them to go smooth. But I guess when you're home alone, sure, I've corrected him, but it is tiresome, especially if you're a teacher by trade. Up until I got this new job, I was teaching English here. Now I don't teach English anymore. I'm a PR coordinator. I finally got a chance to use my marketing degree. But before that, I would teach English during the day, and I'd come home and my roommates wanted to practice English. And I'm just like, oh, no. I just got off of work, you guys.
Get out of here.
It's been very awkward here recently. One of them is willing to pay me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I just want my free time.
I cannot imagine that, especially after hearing all the stories from people I've talked to who are English teachers in Japan. They're having to go overtime on that. Ooh.
Hey guys, real quick, I want to quickly thank our sponsor for this week's video.
Who is our patrons?
That's right.
That's right. And if you want to sponsor our podcast, you can go join and become a patron. But actually, now we have a YouTube membership available where you can see fully edited YouTube videos with the thumbnail and description on our YouTube channel if you become a member. And you also get a special badge.
Special badge of KoreKara honor. But that's up to you. Anyways, back to the podcast.
So do you think accent is important? Would you want to achieve like a native or perfect accent?
I think that's out of the question by this point, because I did start learning. So you've interviewed Dogen, you've interviewed Matt. They both started as, teenagers, about 12, 13 years old. I started learning Japanese at 25. It's out of the question. It's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that you can't improve. So, I'm trying to improve my Japanese very much right now. It's important for my job. I have to use I'm going to have to use Sonkeigo, Kenjogo, formal Japanese. It's not, America kara kimashita. It's America kara mairimashita, things like that. Or, you don't say to your boss, or you don't say to your client, yoroshiku ne, it's yoroshiku onegai itashimasu, and all this business language. I have to polish it up, but will I ever get to the point, even with Chinese, where I could mimic a native? Maybe in a short conversation, maybe if we're just talking for 10 minutes or less. But no, I'll never. And I would debate too that nobody who learned a second language like that after puberty, that they would be a native. Or even if you did start learning at 12 or 13, come to Japan, go to a Japanese office. You're going to be the odd one out. You are. I mean, maybe just by, this much or whatever, but you're not going to be native. It's just kind of how it is. But I'm definitely trying to get as close as I can. But at the same time, you have to realize for every extra hour you put into that, it's kind of like diminishing margin on returns. Somebody criticized my Chinese, which is totally fine. She made a good video about it and said, well, you could improve this part, that part. Sure. Or instead of just focusing those hundreds of hours on Chinese to get less and less benefits, I decided after 3 years to take on Japanese, and I've gotten so many more benefits than just improving my Chinese by that much more.
Right.
And that's how I feel.
Isn't the fact that since there's always something to work on and improve, theoretically you could continually get better at your accent. You could keep improving. Like Dogen's course, he talks about specific ways to pronounce words, and so even past the critical age, you could still consciously improve your accent, right?
Good question. Of course you can improve your accent, and you should strive to do that, and I'm still striving to do that with Japanese, and to a lesser extent with Chinese as well. But you have to realize when you get to a certain point where you're able to, say, work in Japan, or you passed JLPT N1, you've gone to a Japanese university, you've gotten to the point where you are at the advanced level, and every improvement after that is going to take a heck of a lot of time. It's not like the beginning level where you're making huge progress, like visible progress in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You can see that, you can hear the difference. It's very obvious. When you're at that level and you're spending the same amount of hours, you're getting like this much. It's diminishing margin on returns. Your time investment is huge. What you get out of it is, I'm not saying it's nothing, but it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah, improve your accent. Those videos are valuable, but realize, you know, at a certain point, do you want to continue with this, or do you want to learn another skill? What's going to give you more benefits? You've gotten to the point where your Japanese is really, really good. Keep going with it, but you can also maybe take on another language at that point.
Yeah. So would you agree that theoretically it's possible to get pretty close to native, even though there are like diminishing margins on returns? Like what
does
if you
that
just committed
mean,
to
though?
one language.
What does that mean though? Like in a 10-minute conversation? Sure, absolutely. But if you're actually, and that's just speaking, right? That's just the accent. We're not even talking about vocabulary. We're not even talking about formal Japanese. We're not talking about writing. We're not talking about reading. No, I will say if even my friend Akaki, who also has done YouTube, he's a Finnish guy. He's lived here for 12 years. He writes Japanese contracts like he's that good. He's probably the odd one out. Still, if he were in the Japanese office, he's still the foreigner. And even Matt and Dogen, as good as they are, if they went to a Japanese office, they would still be the foreigner. They would still not be as good as their colleagues. And that's just how it goes. I had a boyfriend who grew up in China for the first 6 years of his life, moved over to America, spoke almost exclusively English after that. He still had a little bit off about his English, even though he was almost native. But even 6 years, you know, that developmental time in a young child's brain, if they didn't get English for the first 6 years of their life, they're even a little bit off. So if he was even a little bit off, imagine the people that learned at 13.
Right. But so theoretically, if you just committed to one, like let's say Dogen committed to one, by the time he's like 60 years old, he would probably be like pretty close, right?
No, I don't think it's possible. No, I don't think it's possible, and I'll tell you why. You can look at immigrant families that go over to the U.S. Maybe they went over at 20, like I did, and they spend the next 20 years in America. They still have an accent, but you look at their children. You look at their children; they speak perfect English better than their parents, and they're only 10 years old. Why is that? It has to do with your brain development. You know, you're not going to be native, but you can perhaps get pretty darn close. But I don't think you'll ever get all the way there.
I think the case with that though is because like you said, there's a diminishing margin of returns. They get to a point where their language ability is good enough for everything, right? It's not like they would get a promotion or anything, so they just stay at this level. But let's say you were like Dogen or Matt, you're so passionate, you even beyond this diminishing return, you just keep going. You could theoretically get to that point, right? Or do you think there's actually a ceiling?
I don't think you could. No, I don't think you could because of biology, because you didn't get that language when you were a baby. So I don't think you could. I think that those people that have lived in America for 20 years that went over at 15, 20 years old, I think they're stuck with the accent, or they're stuck with the slightly less native English, which is fine. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the less native Chinese. I'm okay with the less native Japanese. It didn't even stop me from getting a master's degree or going to school here. But I would say no, because if you didn't learn from infancy, or you didn't learn from early childhood, that it will be a little bit off, and it will always be a little bit off. You can compare immigrants to their parents in that situation.
Right. No, but immigrants aren't like Dogen, right? For example, like teaching or like passionate about studying pronunciation. But so basically, you think there's like a ceiling where even if you just kept trying every day, every year, you would just get to a point where you can't even improve at all?
Not that you can't improve. You can always improve. What I'm saying is there is a limitation. There is definitely a limitation because you didn't get that language from that young age when your brain was still developing. You will always have English as your native language influencing your other foreign languages in your brain. Whether it's muscle memory with your mouth, whether it's just recalling words or memorization of grammar, it will always be a little bit off from the native speaker. In like real life, not in a 10-minute conversation.
For sure.
If you're writing an essay, can you write as good as someone who has gone through Japanese school since they were in kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, university, graduate school, postgrad? No. You'll see the differences there then in writing and writing essays. It'll be a little off. You'll have your colleagues correcting your grammar.
Right.
I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of foreigners who have like pretty much perfect grammar, and also like flow, just like there's an accent.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you constantly try to improve, you would get pretty close. Because I read this book called Atomic Habits, and one of the key points was talking about how if you just improved every day at a particular skill just by 1%, by the end of the year, you would have improved by 37 times what you were at the beginning.
Yeah, but language learning is not a skill like, say, for example, computers or IT or programming or something like that. This is something that you start learning from the time you're in your mother's belly. You start acquiring language skills. If you missed out on the first 6 years, the first 10 years, I'm sorry, there's going to be limitations, but what's the problem with that? I mean, Who cares if it's slightly off? Who cares if my boyfriend, my Chinese boyfriend, X, if he didn't get English for the 6 years, first 6 years of his life, he had a teeny tiny little accent. I mean, whatever. He was a nuclear engineer. He went to the University of Michigan, didn't stop him. But even my family, when they talked to him, despite all his many years of English, they still said, Raymond has an accent. I barely heard it, but to them, it was off. Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, could hear a little strangeness, some strange points in his language as well every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at that point it's more like a video game where you're just trying to improve. Like, for example, like runners who they constantly want to beat their own personal best. But it's not like they would get any sort of reward, right?
Yeah, but I mean, how much can he do at the end? He's now over 30 years old, and it seems to be stuck. He's getting English every day. He's literally only using English every day now. So that's about as much as you can do, 24 hours a day. That's the definition of working hard, like giving it your all. Like he literally doesn't even use Chinese anymore, and it's still stuck.
Right.
I would say it's not going anywhere.
Oh, yeah. One thing I was wondering is, so a lot of times people come on our podcast and they'll come with us and tell us, oh, our goal is to be native in Japanese. So, but for like conversely, you're very clear cut on your expectations with both Chinese and Japanese. So I was wondering, what would you say your goals would be for, I guess we can talk about Japanese, but I guess just language learning in general.
Sure. My goal right now is to maintain Chinese and not forget it. It's very hard when you're not in the environment, even with Chinese roommates. I'd say my absolute prime was when I was back at school doing presentations. But I don't feel like I've forgotten anything. It's just, recalling it, bringing it to the front of your brain so you can bring up these words very quickly in conversation. My goal, is to maintain Chinese, and I think that next year I want to get a job where I can use Chinese and Japanese. I was very close to that this year, didn't quite make the cut because of the time. You got to worry about visa issues here as well, so I want to be able to use Chinese and Japanese for my job. With Japanese, learning business language, that was so hard with the interviews that I did. Maybe that's why I failed some of the interviews. Finally got one. All you need is one, but there were quite a few that were like, no, maybe next year. And maybe next year I can do better. So I really want to spend this year leveling up my Japanese to get it to business level, improving my accent as well. And I'm going to need it for daily life with my fiancé.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's maybe a good way to kind of encapsulate everything here, because at the end of all of our podcasts, we like to do a very classic kind of KoreKara message to the listeners, where you can go and impart any advice or anything. I mean, I think you've given everyone a lot of advice already so far throughout the podcast, a lot of information coming through, but it can be anything from a fun little message to maybe something that just came on your mind, a little quick message to anyone listening. It's really anything, but the main thing is we're putting you on the spot, Anming. The lights are shining brighter than the Tokyo Olympics here.
The one piece of advice to everyone watching who is studying a language: get off of YouTube now. One of the reasons that I learned Chinese so fast is because YouTube, social media, Facebook, everything was blocked. I could only get on for about like 5 minutes a day, maybe. It was so slow. So if you're studying a language right now, you're watching really, really long videos or whatever, that's okay. Try to do maybe just 5 minutes because, yeah, people watching, if you're a YouTube fan, you probably waste a lot of time. So that's most people's problem when learning a language. You want to learn about methods. Watch an hour of a methods video. How about just study for an hour? I always felt that way about it. You know, like, you guys gotta use your time better. Gotta use your time better. I'm a YouTuber. I love when people watch my videos, but don't watch too long. You know, use your time wisely. That's the biggest thing. You can study pitch accent or whatever all you want. If you're not using your time wisely, it's like talking about going to the gym, but you never go. Okay, perfect form, but you never go. So yeah, increase your time in the gym, increase your time studying languages. Not on YouTube.
except for the KoreKara podcast. Make sure to...
that one.
You gotta whitelist that website, the KoreKara podcast.
Right. That's the only thing you can watch.
Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the podcast. Comment down below if you've ever shocked a Japanese or Chinese person. Like, I looked down and I just saw your face. I just shocked you.
Yeah, you shocked me good, dude. You shocked me good.
But I want to quickly thank our patrons: Roz, Brit vs. Japan, Quaid, Alan Card, KH90, Drew, Jack, Yui, and Sad Boy. Thanks for watching.